Unmute yourself too. We went to the wrong person.
We did.
Well, hello. Welcome to this week's Brand and Business Remix Live. Today we'll be talking about what is arguably our most valuable asset, time. So if you're taking some of that time with us, we'd love to hear from you. So please ask questions, make comments, or just say hi so we know you're here. It helps us to know we're not just talking into a void. So, even if you just stop by for a few minutes, just say hello to us, please. I'm Amanda from VarkOps, the business part of Brand and Business Remix. I work with a lot of busy business owners to help them get their time back through smarter systems and streamlined operations. I do that by really diving into their processes and figuring out how to untangle the mess in a way that's sustainable for the way that person thinks and works, not necessarily what works and how I think. And with me, as always, is Garth. Wait, no, that's not right. With me, as always, is the team from Tansy Aster Creative, Jesse and Tara, who are the AI and brand wizards. I will let them introduce themselves. Jesse?
Hello, I'm Jesse, not Garth. And I'm actually not muted this time. I had to double check. I'm not sure where Garth came from, but I'm the AI automation and implementation person here at Brand and Business Remix. And I'm just thrown off by the Garth thing. I'm not sure what else to say about myself right now. Other than I play with robots and get frustrated with putting together AI automations sometimes. And it's just part of the process. This kind of technology is still early on, and there's still some frustrations involved, but when it works, it really pays off. And with that, I'll turn things over to Tara.
Hi, I'm Garth.
She gets it.
Tara. I'm Tara. I'm a brand strategist and creative director. And I've spent the last 15 years working with startups, nonprofits, large organizations like healthcare organizations, tell the truth about who they are through branding. And I'm really excited today because one of the things that came up when we were doing Amanda's brand work and we were talking about Amanda's brand is that time is not just money, it's your freedom. And when you try to do everything yourself, like I have in the past, you pay for it in more ways than one. In my case, my focus, my energy, and my creativity. My creativity suffered. So I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today, the hidden cost of doing it yourself and how Amanda can help business owners get that time back. And I'm hoping she can help me.
Well, I like to help everyone. So if I confused anybody else besides my brother, with me, as always, is Garth, is from Wayne's World. A lot of my references are based in the 80s and 90s. I don't have current references. So, yeah, if you don't understand something I say, or sometimes I just say random things that don't really come from anywhere, but usually it's some kind of music reference or an 80s or 90s movie. So that's where that came from. And we all understand the value of money, what things cost. We talk about that all the time, especially lately. Seems to be a hot topic, what everything costs. But sometimes we forget the value of time. And lack of time is number one problem business owners complain to me about. No one has enough of it. I don't think either one of you feel like you have enough time. I don't think I know anybody who feels like they have enough time. That usually stems from a few things. It can be poor time management, skills in general, something a lot of people have issues with, not a judgment, not saying you're bad, but time management is a really tricky thing for a lot of people because you have a lot of different things going on. A lot of times it's because we take on too much by trying to do it all ourselves. When you are a business owner, you wear a lot of hats, and sometimes all those hats take up all the time that you have and then some. And that's where we run into some more issues. And we lose a lot of time putting out fires and fixing mistakes, usually when we have poor systems or no systems set up. And we're constantly trying to fix things instead of being able to move forward and use some of that time for the things that are important. So what we want to talk about today with some real numbers, real impact. If you've ever hesitated to invest in a tool or an app or a service because it costs too much, that's what we're here talking about. Because usually smart investments aren't about spending money. They're about buying back your freedom so you can focus on what actually makes you money and the things that make you happy. Most of us didn't get into business because we wanted to do admin work. The admin work is usually the byproduct of that thing that we really want to do. So hopefully that is something that you can all relate to and can talk to us about. We want to hear your feelings about all of this as we go along. I'll chat about some common mindset blocks that keep people stuck, what we call the real cost of DIY, and some practical examples that show why delaying real solutions only drains your time, your energy, and your bank account even more. Because realistically, fixing it later always costs more than doing it right the first time. I don't know how many people have run into that where you spend a lot of time and money and frustration and you're pulling your hair out because you're trying to make this one thing work when it probably would have worked if you would have just maybe spent the money to have somebody do it right the first time. So there's a lot of things to consider. I do actually have some slides for this little presentation, but I want to forewarn you, they're not as pretty as Tara's from a couple of weeks ago. I am not a visual expert. I started off with just text because I wanted to break it up. You don't always want to stare at our faces the whole time, I'm guessing. So thought, well, let's get something visual in there. But I started with text, but then I started feeling really jealous because Tara had fun animals and my text was really boring. So I thought, well, let me see if I can add something in there. And then I got to playing around with AI. And I was just amusing myself with what Canva has as a built-in AI tool. And some of the things that it generated they just made me laugh. They made me laugh out loud by myself. So I thought I would include those, some of these goofy pictures to help lighten the mood. And it's also a very good illustration of why DIY isn't always the best. Because if I went to Tara and said, hey, I need to hire you to put together this presentation and make it pretty for me, it would be beautiful and there'd be some fun things in there. But try to do it myself, and it's going to take me longer, and also it's not going to be good because I don't make presentations. That is not my strong suit. So I just want to put that out there. These are intentionally bad. So you can laugh at me. That is okay. That is welcome. But hopefully don't judge me and say, oh, like your placement was all wrong there. This is by design. So I just want to put that out there. If we want to start with our first slide here. And this is the main focus of what we're talking about. It's the real cost of doing it all yourself because your time is too valuable to waste. This is something I talk to business owners and just non-business owners. I just talk to people about this all the time because it doesn't apply just to business. You think about things around the house and what you spend a lot of time doing when you could probably spend a lot less time, save yourself the money if you did it a different way. So we really want to dive into the costs of not delegating, not hiring help, and just thinking, oh, I'll fix it myself. I'll figure it out. I'll do this. And, like I said, we would really like to have some commentary here. So yeah, we'll see where we go. But I first want to start with Jesse and Tara to see if you have any thoughts before we dive into this.
Thoughts, Jesse?
Bueller?
I probably have some thoughts. I know that I see a lot of people, at least in the podcast editing space, who definitely have that I have to do it all myself. And I think a lot of it's because of this feeling that I don't have enough money to pay somebody else to do these things. So I have to do them all myself. So I've definitely seen that. We've all been in that situation where it's like, I don't have the money to pay someone for that, or I can't justify paying somebody for that if I can do it myself. Websites are a good example. There's all sorts of things out there that you can do yourself, but you probably end up paying somebody else to do it because they can get it done faster or better, or it's just going to take you too much time to learn. So there's definitely a mindset shift that needs to happen when we start running a business that we can't always look at it the same way we do running our personal lives.
I'm coming from the perspective of a creative who spent many years trying to do it all myself, all things marketing, all things creative. And I burnt myself out because I wasted a lot of time on little things that maybe I could have gotten help for, but I'm so fiercely independent at times that I always think, well, it's going to take too long to tell somebody else what I want. So I'm just going to do it myself. Does that sound familiar to anybody? So I've also worked with CEOs and leaders and founders who also tried to do it all themselves because they were afraid that it wouldn't be done right otherwise, or because, again, they didn't want to show anybody else. They didn't feel like they had time. So many different reasons. And again, they would get really stressed out, flustered. And I think what Amanda's presenting here, showing us exactly what happens when we try to do it all ourselves, putting a cost to it. I think it's going to be really helpful in opening our minds to, hey, even though it might take you some time to show somebody else what you want, it's probably not going to take as much time and cost than if you try and do it yourself versus just hire an expert, tell them what you want, and let them do their thing.
Experts are experts in what they do for a reason. So we embrace the experts. And we do have
We've got a comment.
Yep.
I need to reshape these.
Hello, Elder McEwen.
With time and money, we can't accomplish anything. And that's so true. The problem is most of us don't have the time and money to accomplish everything or anything.
Yeah, it is true. Those are the two things I think we'd all be much better if we had both. But there are ways we can create a little bit of both, and they work together. Sometimes you can use your time to create more money, or you can create your money or use your money to create more time. So this is how we figure out what's best, and it's that balance. It's prioritizing and trying to figure out how to spend both of those things. and Big Brother is watching, literally, but also you never know who else is paying attention. All right. Let's dig into, I haven't seen these slides since I made them. So these are the common mindset blocks. And my AI prompt for this image was, I wanted to see some funny animals in a roadblock. And it created, I don't know what it's like a massive guinea pig. I don't think these are real animals. They are completely made up, but I like them. I would like to encounter one, maybe in the road, as long as I'm not going to run into it. But if maybe they used a crosswalk. The coyotes in Sedona used to use crosswalks. So you never know. But those are my goofy made up animals. The mindset blocks, because I think we all have those, it usually comes from something. And let me put it out there. I am guilty of all of these things. I am an adamant do-it-yourselfer, and I can figure it out, and I can do everything type of person. So I have to remind myself about these things all the time. But when I'm talking to people specifically in business about what's stopping them from moving forward, it's, well, I don't want to pay for another subscription, which I get. We all have a ton of subscriptions just in our regular lives, not to mention what it takes to run a business. There are usually a handful of things that we're paying for monthly, and those costs add up. Then there's I'll figure it out myself, my favorite one. And it's like, I don't need to hire somebody. I can do this. And I think for me, sometimes it comes from stubbornness. Sometimes it's because I really want to understand how to do everything. It's an opportunity for me to learn something new, and I enjoy that. But also, I have to have the time available to learn something new if that's the route that I'm going to go. And then my other favorite, they're all my favorites. It's not that bad yet. And that is just opening yourself up for disaster. I work with people a lot of times in the very beginning of certain careers. I teach some workshops for voice actors who are just getting started. And it's what I urge everyone is, from the very beginning, get your systems set up, get workflows in place, because it's really easy to do when you're just starting and maybe you just have your first client or your first project and you're just getting going. But what happens a lot of times is that people get that first client and they're like, I've only got one. I can manage this. I don't want to spend the money yet. I'm not ready. It's too expensive. I just got my first client. And then they get another client. And no, it's just two. I can handle it. And they get more and they get more. And by the time they get to the point where they're ready to spend the money, well, now they're so busy, they can't get anything set up. So they can get the software, but now they have to go back however long to make sure everything is current and to get used to a new workflow. And that takes time. And that's what happens a lot is people are ready to start a new workflow, but it takes too long to learn something new. So they just go back to the way they've been doing things, and then everything is a mess. And that mess just gets worse and worse. The more clients they get, the busier they get. And I think most of them wish, oh, well, I should have really just done this from the beginning and I wouldn't have to be dealing with this right now. Thoughts?
I completely agree. And the analogy I like to use is when you're building a business, you need to build that foundation if you want to be able to scale and do it in a graceful manner. If you don't have that foundation, it's so much more difficult to be able to grow and build everything out as you get more clients, like you were saying. At least that's what we've seen, and I can say we've been guilty of that too. We ended up getting a bunch of work, never really laid that foundation, and we're taking the time to do that, build all of that up now. It's always easier to look back at things in hindsight, but it's something we've always knew we had to do. It was just a matter of finding that time. And what we've found is that if you don't have that foundation, it's hard to find the time to market yourself because you're too busy doing all of the work. You don't have time to actually develop the business. So it becomes one of those things. You can't really build it because you haven't priced yourself right. You haven't set aside enough time to do it. So you're doing all of the work, but you're not doing anything to build your foundation, to build it brick by brick and start to really develop a business.
Yeah, the funny part is we've been in business since 2020 when we officially started our business. And until this year, I've done probably close to zero marketing. In those first few years, I was so busy, I did not have time to do marketing, just like Dusty was saying. And I didn't have time to build that pipeline and get organized. I was winging it. And so at one point, I was juggling about 8 clients in a month at the same time. And it was great to have clients, but I also just felt spread so thin and so burnt out. I was working weekends, I was working evenings. So it really is important to think this through and think through how you're going to handle the work, how many clients you can realistically handle, and to start figuring out a marketing plan that's going to be sustainable for you early, because I'm embarrassed to say that as a marketer, I did not market because it was like, well, when is there time? And now it's like you have to keep that pipeline going because at some point you're going to have a lull. And those referrals are going to stop coming in, and things like this year, the economy is going to go into chaos and everything is thrown up in the air, and we're just kind of watching the dust settle and wondering, okay, what's next? This is a great time to start building your marketing plan, which is exactly what we're doing.
I remember a friend telling me once that was what she always had to remember to do, was because we all get in that pattern. It's like, oh, we're busy. We don't have to go looking for work while we're busy. We don't have time to go looking for more work while we're busy because we're busy working. But if you don't start looking for that next job, project, etc., while you're busy, you're going to hit that slump, and then you have all the time, but now you're worried about the money. So it's difficult because when you're doing a bunch of stuff because you're busy and that money's coming in, it's great, but you have to remember that project can come to an end. So you have to kind of prepare for what's next. I have not been great at doing that either. Marketing, we know it's not what I do. And I got just so used to many years of referrals just bringing me business that I never had to look for it. It was fantastic. And then work got slow. And I think I convinced myself, well, I need to just enjoy some quiet time. The work will come back. It'll be fine. But it's a nice chance to, go outside and spend some more time in nature and not worry about being busy all the time. But then more time passed, and the industries that I work in are still slow. They've been slow for a couple of years. And so it got to be at some point, okay, so maybe I should put some effort into this. Maybe that's why people who do marketing and know all of that stuff exist. Maybe that's why I need to hire some experts to help me build a new brand and it can, talk to people about the things that I do that they don't know that I do. And so here we are. we're talking to you now. But there are many excuses. There are constant excuses for why we don't want to do something. And the weird thing that I hear a lot is that people think it will take too much time to save them time. And that comes back from whether it's just themselves or if they have the team. You get used to doing things a certain way. And the bigger the team, the more people you then have to retrain to do things a new way. And that comes with resistance and complaints and all of those things. And that's, I think, what stops people. It's like, I can't. I mean, we can't just slow down for long enough for somebody to learn a new system, because then all that time that they're spending not learning, the other work is going to fall through the cracks. So you have to make the time for what's important. I feel that way about people in their personal lives too. You make time for what's important, but really have to learn how to prioritize your time to figure out how, and know that it's just like a financial investment. You're going to spend the time in the beginning, but it will pay off after you get the new systems in place. Then you're going to save a ton of time. And it's kind of like if you think about you're doing, if people were really into spring cleaning, it seems not too long ago. So you usually make a mess before you clean because you're pulling everything out of the drawers. You're seeing what you have. Everything is in a box. You're pulling it out of a box to see if you need it or you need to put it back in a box. So you make a big mess first. And then you start organizing things. You make your piles and what you're going to donate and what's trash and what you want to keep and maybe what, you want to redecorate or whatever. And then you pull everything together. And now everything's clean and organized. And that's when Amanda's happy because, we know how I feel about clutter in general. But it took that time in the beginning, but the payoff is there when it's done. It's the same thing in business. You are doing a little spring cleaning for your business and you're going to make a little bit of a mess or maybe a giant mess before you get back into it. So there we are. And here I am again. Oh, my head went away. We're back to Jesse. So you can have a comment. Oh, and you're muted. You're muted. Audio guys muted.
And one other thing I wanted to add to that is when we're talking about marketing and word of mouth and all of that stuff, is we need to understand that marketing isn't a spigot that you can turn on and off when you need it. If you do that, it's not going to run when you need that spigot on. It's something you need to always have on. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
All right. Well, let's move on. Wasting time is wasting money. They really do go hand in hand. And you start thinking about value of time. And we don't want to get into a math class here. We're going to keep everything very, very simple. But in order to figure out the value of your time, you have to know what your time is worth. And an easy way to figure that out is think about in terms of hours, because some people do bill hourly, so that makes that part of it pretty easy. For some of us, it's a little more complicated. If you might have project rates, or you might do things that don't necessarily generate money instantly, but you're doing sales efforts, marketing, whatnot, to bring that time in or that money in. So you think about spending time, what an hour you spend on admin tasks. So if you're doing your bookkeeping, you're catching up on emails, any of those little things that you have to do to keep the business running that aren't actually the service or products that you offer, every hour you're spending on that stuff is an hour of lost billable time. So that's one way to look at it. And just thinking about how, so if you're spending too much time on the wrong thing, it's going to cost you that productivity, it's going to cost you the time and probably your enjoyment. Because again, unless you're one of them, if you are somebody who loves admin work, please let us know. I haven't met any of you yet, and I would like to know that you're out there, because there has to be. Because people tell me about my spreadsheets. Most people hate spreadsheets. I love them. So, I'm sure there are people who just really love doing admin work. So please let us know if you're one of them. But, and at first I have to also draw attention to my poor slide placement photo. The prompt I gave for this one was an aardvark. It had something to do with an aardvark and time, or putting the time in the trash. That's what it was. And if anybody knows what an aardvark looks like, it's not that. I think this looks like an angry beaver. I'm not quite sure. It's
Angry beaver. Yeah.
yeah. Nobody
Maybe a
wants it.
squirrel?
That's a really well-fed squirrel.
It could
But
be.
yes,
It lives in
it
the
could.
Northwest.
This is true. We do. Our birds are quite large up here. They eat well. But so think about how do you put a value on an hour of your time? What is an hour of your time worth? And again, if you do bill hourly, that makes it really simple. For purposes of this live stream, I'm going to land on $100 an hour. It's a number that some people charge. It's easy for math. So we like to keep things easy there. But again, there are different ways to look at it. It's if I was spending an hour doing something else, what would that give me back? That could be enjoyment. It could be, again, it could be proper time put into your marketing efforts. So maybe instead of spending the time on the admin work, you hire a virtual assistant who can take care of a lot of the busy work for you. You can then take that time and apply it to networking, getting more leads, bringing more business in that's going to earn you more money than what you're paying that person. So that's kind of what we're looking at here when it comes to what is your time worth. But for the two of you and anybody in the comments or who are watching, what do you, and you don't have to give me a dollar amount, but how do you figure out what an hour of your time is worth?
Well, one of the things, this isn't directly answering your question, and I'll probably come back to that, but one of the
Typical
things you
Jesse.
touched one of the things you touched on is if you don't just, I guess the question is, how much of your downtime, how much of your family time or your fun time do you end up spending doing admin tasks? Do you spend doing your invoicing or your bookkeeping because you're spending all of your work time doing the actual work? To me, that time, nights, weekends, time I could be spending with Tara or going out hiking, that time is very valuable to me. So I don't want to be losing that. But in terms of what my time is worth, is that the question you asked?
Yeah, I'm curious because we've had some conversations about different ways that you can come up with a value of your time. So I'm just curious for you two how you come up with whatever your number is.
We did a lot of fancy math to basically determine how much we needed to earn working. I think it was about 30 hours a week. Maybe it was a little bit less than that on actual billable work. We were setting aside about 10% of our work hours for working on the business and putting all of that in and having time off. We ended up with a number. That's our, I guess, the lowest hourly we can charge. And for most of what we do, we don't charge hourly. But what we do internally for pricing out projects is still going to have an element of hourly time involved. So we know, okay, this is the least we can charge for an hour of our time to be able to be profitable. Anything less than that, and we're going to have to work more hours or charge more for another project somewhere else to offset that.
And I like that you both mentioned including time for your own fun and personal enjoyment, time with family, time that, let's face it, really matters to all of us. For me, that's not only time with Jesse and family and the kitties, but also writing time. I write fiction books, and I've been so busy working and in the corporate world that I haven't written a book in a long time, as many people have reminded me. And so having time back to keep working on the book that I'm working on is really important to me. So the more that I can take off of my plate, that means I can end my day earlier. I can carve out, have more creative energy for my writing, because I do need a lot of creative energy. So if I'm spending all day being creative, I've got to save those reserves, you know?
And there are a lot of things to consider when you're figuring out what your time is worth. Those are really important things, because I think that's what goes, people forget to factor that in. And that's why everybody's always searching for that elusive work-life balance. It's how do we get that? But, for me, I like to be able to go out for walks in the middle of the day if the weather is nice. And it doesn't mean that I'm just going to throw all work aside. Sometimes I bargain with myself, like, okay, I'm going to go out for an hour now, but that might mean that I'm going to work an hour until 6 instead of till 5. Then that's the trade-off. But I think it's important to make that time to do what's important and figure out your timing that way. And other things, again, to consider, if you offer a lot of different services, which of those bring in the most income? So where's your time best spent? Do you have an average hourly rate for that service? And again, a lot of us do package deals, but I'm pretty sure most of us factor in to that price. Well, how much time are we going to have to spend on? I shouldn't say have to. How much time do we get to spend on this? And figure out a roundabout way to come up with a number that makes sense for the amount of time that you're going to put into it. Then you want to think about how much time are you spending on admin and operation type tasks and those things that you can't charge for, but still need to get done. And remember that the best tasks to delegate or outsource are the ones that you don't like doing, or the ones that you're not good at. And when I say you're not good at, it could mean that you're not efficient at it. It could just mean that you don't really focus. We can all be very easily distracted. And if you don't like what you're doing, it's very easy to work for a couple minutes and then, I wonder what kind of cat video I can look at, and then come back to it for a couple minutes and what's going on over there? If we don't want to do something, we tend to stretch out how long it takes because we don't want to be doing that. Or unless you get really motivating, you're like, I don't want to do this. I'm going to do it as fast as possible so I can move along. But if you don't like doing it, don't spend your time on it if you don't have to, because you started a business so you could probably so you could do fun things, not so you could do your bookkeeping. Unless you started a bookkeeping business, or if you really like bookkeeping, then you're in a good spot. But again, I said this last week, and I probably the week before, I always use bookkeeping as the example because most people don't like it, but every business has to do it. So it's usually one of the first tasks that people outsource, because they get to a point and they're like, I don't want to do this. I hate it. I don't like looking at it. I don't want to think about it. I'm going to hire somebody who can do this so I don't have to think about it anymore. Let's move along to our next slide, and the cost of doing it yourself. And this image is another. This one was more accurately an aardvark, and this one was just, I think it was the same prompt. It was based on the aardvark but this was a cartoon image, is why it was different. But I just thought it was fun. It gave it at least a little bit of a different. It wasn't a square. It gave it a little bit of a shape. It had a fun little aardvark just hanging out in the trash with this weird clock in the background. So again, I was having a lot of fun just seeing what AI would come up with. And so a lot of these things, when you decide to do something on your own, it can lead to a lot of mistakes because, and again, not a judgment, but if you don't know what you're doing, maybe you're not as educated in that type of task, or you don't have as much experience yet, you're likely to make more mistakes. And the time that you spend fixing those mistakes, you could be losing clients, you could be missing deadlines. That word gets out there, so it could hurt your overall credibility. These things happen because people, they love to talk when things are bad. If they have a bad experience with somebody, that's when they go out on social media. That's when they post all the reviews, and they want people to know how terrible their experience was. They don't really put the same amount of effort into good experiences, which is unfortunate. But that, and when people talk, and people in the same industry, especially even in big cities where you think nobody knows each other, it seems that everybody knows each other, and one bad experience and that goes around, not just within the city but in the community as a whole. And again, I think about voice actors because I work with a lot of them. They might be based in Las Vegas, but somebody in Atlanta might hear, oh, this client, because they're all in the same circles. So you don't want to end up in one of those lists of, like, okay, well, I hired this company and, they promised me this and they couldn't deliver. They missed the deadline. And you can't go to a client and say, hey, I'm not going to make that deadline for you because our systems are not working, because I didn't set them up right, or I made a mistake here, or somebody is trying to do something they're not qualified to do. You can't, you could be that transparent, but I wouldn't suggest it. That's not the best thing to do. And I said it before, it costs more to fix it later than to do it right from the start. It's the more time that you have to backtrack and figure out things that were done incorrectly, the longer it's going to take to get to that point where things are running smoothly. And the more time that we put into fixing all of these mistakes and trying to course correct and do the things that we wish we would have done right from the beginning, that's when you get to that burnout, like Tara mentioned, because you're spending all of this time fixing things or doing things that you don't like doing, or they're just taking longer than you want them to. And then all of your fun time has disappeared. Your business isn't moving forward because it's just trying to keep up with all the band-aids you've put on things. And that's not a good place to be. Thoughts? Oh, a cat has a thought. I don't.
When Ziggy does, when you pulled that up, what does it mean that I saw milkshakes instead of mistakes?
It means you need another trip to 8 Cal.
It's so funny. I was like,
Milkshake.
milkshakes. Oh wait, mistakes. That's not as fun. But all of this
if
is
you leave
true.
work to go get milkshakes, you could lose clients that way too, I suppose. But you could get
That's
a
true.
milkshake for your client, and then maybe you get some extra work.
Milkshakes for the client. I like that plan because I personally can't really drink them myself, but they sound good in theory. But I would take probably a sip or two and get really like, ugh, okay, no more. But it's true. People tend to speak the most about something they're unhappy about versus something that they really loved. It's unfortunate. I would like there to be more positivity in the world, but I even look at myself and think, when do I get really ramped up and mouth off? Well, when I'm unhappy with customer service, I tend to speak out. And when something goes really well, I'll say, thank you, this is great. But maybe I don't blast it off to the universe. I think, yeah, it's just a human tendency. So when you're thinking about the cost of doing it yourself, that is something to think about because it is really easy to drop balls when you're trying to juggle so much at once. I mean, I can't juggle at all personally. I think I've tried a couple times and it didn't go too well. But so you can imagine if you're trying to juggle like 10 things at once, especially in areas you don't have a lot of expertise in, how that's going to go and how that's going to come across to your clients or your customers, because people can tell when you're sort of phoning it in or they only have part of your attention or you seem really distracted on a call. They don't feel like you're there with them. You're not there connecting with them. That's going to be a problem. If they say something and you kind of go, uh-huh, yeah, as you're kind of looking at your phone, that doesn't go over well.
And when I think of mistakes, there's a few things that come to mind. One, mistakes eat into your profitability. And people who are trying to do things all themselves, a lot of times they're not charging enough for their time as it is. So when you're going through that learning process and you have those mistakes, even if the client doesn't see them, they're they mean you're spending more time on that project, or you've had to go back and redo it, start from scratch, whatever the case is. So mistakes, they do hit the bottom line. That's one of the reasons why, if you're not efficient and skilled at something, I'd question whether it's the right service to offer. And going back to the podcast editing space, I see so many people go, well, I need to offer more services to them. I took on a video editing client. I don't know how to edit videos, so I'm watching some videos on how to do it, and I'm stuck. Or, hey, my client just sent me 500 gigabytes worth of 4K video footage. My computer can't handle this. I don't have anywhere to store it all. What am I supposed to do? Well, you should know these things going in. You should, if you're offering it as a service, you should be able to already do it to a decent level. If you're still learning, you're not ready to offer it as a service yet. And granted, we're always learning, but you're going to know if you feel ready to offer something. If you're still watching tutorials on how to do something, you're probably not there yet.
I'm not a fan of the fake it till you make it idea. I've known people who will just say they know how to do something and they just figure they'll figure it out. Like, no, I don't know how to do it, but yes, I'm going to tell them that I do so I can make the money doing it. But usually what happens is they take on the job because they think they can do it. They agree on a rate that seems to make sense at the time. They're like, oh, this is great, until they figure out how much time it actually ends up spending them, because they're doing all of the Google searches and the tutorials and the troubleshooting. And then suddenly this job that started out, maybe it was going to pay $100 an hour. By the time you figure out all of the things that you don't know and you've done the job, maybe it's paying you $8 an hour, if even that. And I hear that all the time. And then sometimes people will then go to the client and ask for more money. And you can't do that. You can ask for more money when the client changes the scope of a project, but you can't ask them for more money because you poorly estimated your time and you don't really know what you're doing. And I know some people early on that try to do that, and it's not great. It's not a great thing to do. And I just think, I'm all about tutorials and learning things that I don't know. Like I said, I look for chances to do that, but not for offering a service. And if somebody asks me, hey, have you done this before? And I haven't, I will always be honest with that and say, look, I haven't, but here are the things that I've done that use similar skills. So I know that I can pick that up really quickly. But you need to be comfortable with it. I think you have to be very transparent and not, if you're offering video editing services and you don't know how to edit video. And that's the problem, is people look at certain things and they think, oh, that's easy, I could do that. Like it doesn't take any real skill to do something, because the people who are good at their jobs make it look really simple and seamless, and you don't know how long it took them to get to the point to make it look so simple and seamless. But we can't look at something and just think, oh, that probably doesn't take too much time. I could do that myself. Because, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that not ever, when you see the end result, you don't always know what kind of effort somebody put into that. So just some things to consider. It's essentially, with all of these ideas, and when you're talking about trying to save the time, or is it going to take you too much time to save the time, you're thinking about you can either invest in it now, or you could pay more later. And by pay, that could be with your money, it could be with your energy, it could be with your reputation. So a lot of times it ends up making more sense to just invest in smart systems from the beginning, and then you're in a good place moving forward.
Whenever you defer something, it doesn't matter what it is, there's always interest, even if it's not in the form of money. When you put something off, it comes with some sort of a cost. We may not be aware of it at the time, but at the very least, it's costing us time.
You don't want to cost us time. All right. Well, I want to get into an example here so we can actually start putting numbers to some of this stuff. So hopefully it makes a little more sense, or it might offer a different way to think about things. This weird, goofy, angry, kind of weird looking elephant, this was what AI came up with for bookkeeping animal. And so it's got books. It's keeping them up, I suppose. But it made me laugh. I don't know what the happy little bird at the top was doing, but this image just made me laugh, so I wanted to include it in here. Just a reminder for anybody that wasn't here in the beginning, these images are intentionally not good images because because it amuses me is the real reason, but also where I'm showing why DIY doesn't always work. Because if this was not a live stream for us, and maybe it was a presentation to a prospective client or for a client to somebody, you would not want to show them something like this that just has a random picture put in a corner that doesn't, I'm sure Tara could go into detail. I'm not asking you to, but why this is not a good presentation slide. So, it's just putting it out there that I do know this, but I did it anyway because it made me laugh. But we go back to our bookkeeping example. And I'm going to start with somebody, and I've worked with a lot of people like this. Their current system might be a series of spreadsheets. They're keeping track of invoices they sent out. They're probably creating their invoices in Word or Google Docs or something similar, using one of their templates, maybe using a Canva template, something like that. But it's a different piece of software, and then they're keeping track of everything in a spreadsheet. So they're copying information from one place to another, and then maybe tracking it in a different way. So there's usually a lot of manual entry, fixing errors, because maybe you missed something in one place or a formula was broken in another place. I have seen it all. I feel like I could be a forensic detective because of the amount of times that I've looked through spreadsheets and helped people figure out why they're not adding up properly. And I kind of like that. Again, the weird one, but it is not an efficient way to run a business. It gets extra complicated when you have multiple teams. And that's what there are, like, think about the whole Google Suite or Outlook, any of those shared things are really great in theory. But what happens when you have multiple people working on the same document or the same spreadsheet is one person changes something and it might mess something else up, and nobody really knows. And there's always chance for that no matter what your system is. There can always be user errors and things of that nature. But when you have a lot of connected things that are in different apps and not speaking to each other, it can cost a lot of time. And in this example, just, this company was spending maybe 30 hours a month doing all of their bookkeeping work. So that could be their invoicing, their expenses, tracking the income, all that stuff. So we're again using simple math here just to keep it easy, because we don't want this to be a math class. This should be a fun live stream. So this is where we're going to start with. So now we want to think about, Jesse, the next slide was going to be one option of what we can do. Now, I'm not in any way sponsored or affiliated with QuickBooks Online or any kind of accounting software, but I beg of every business owner to use some kind of accounting software, because it's really helpful to have everything in one place. So invoices are sent, payments are marked, your bank accounts with all your expenses are all in there. It keeps tax time easy. Your accountant will like you more. There's just a lot of reasons why it's better to have everything in one place that somewhat can be automated, a word that Jesse likes, instead of working through manual docs for everything that you're doing and then trying to copy a template and you might miss a line. It just gets ugly. So one option here, it's a first objection I always get. Well, QuickBooks is expensive. Yes, software is expensive. There are other options out there. There's FreshBooks, there's Wave apps. Wave apps used to be free, so it was really nice. They of course got more clients and now they charge. Their free version doesn't have all the functionality that makes sense. So I stick with QuickBooks Online, even though it has its flaws, but it's been around forever. It's the one that accountants like the most. I always think it's important to keep accountants and the money people happy. So it's easier to navigate for the most part. So that's the example that I use. So you can start with their simple start. This is what I use for my business. I don't have one of the fancy versions that cost even more money because I don't need it for the functionality that I need. But it's $35 a month. So people will start immediately. I don't want to pay $35 a month. Understand? You got to do what makes sense for you, but we're just thinking about what $35 a month means. And maybe if you implement the software and you still want to do it yourself, but suddenly you're not doing all the copying and the pasting and all of that fun stuff. So now with QuickBooks Online that you're paying $35 a month for, now it's taking you about 10 hours a month to do everything that you need to do. Where remember, your old system was taking you 30 hours a month. So we start factoring in now the value of time, and what we decided on, we're going to say that our hourly value of time is $100 just for easy math. Say you charge $100 an hour. So that's what an hour of your time is worth. So now you're going to spend the $35 a month on QuickBooks, but you're saving 20 hours a month. And that 20 hours a month at $100 an hour, that's $2,000 a month for spending $35. So your net savings there in theory is almost 2,000, but it's 1,965. And we know that doesn't translate. You're not getting a paycheck that's $1,965 for signing up for QuickBooks. I wish it was that simple, but it's the idea of that is with that extra 20 hours a month, what can you be doing? You could be working on billable projects that you are charging $100 an hour for and making that money. You could be spending it on the networking efforts that will bring in that kind of money. Because, yeah, you don't get paid for your time networking, but if you spend the time in the right places, one paying job is likely, for almost everybody, one job is probably going to pay you more than $35 that month. So it's, where does it make more sense? And again, I've been talking about voice actors, and that's an easy one to think about. Voice actors get jobs by auditioning. So for them, if they take that extra 20 hours and they just spend the whole time auditioning, chances are they get one of those jobs. That job's going to pay more than $35. So you just made money. Even though you spent $35 for the software, you were able to reallocate that time to make more money. And hopefully that makes sense. So I will let you two weigh in and tell me if anything that I said was confusing.
Nothing confusing to me. It's pretty straightforward. You kind of mentioned it earlier. You can use your money to buy time. This is a really good example of how you can use money to buy some of your time back. You're buying 20 hours of time back for $35. I don't know. Maybe it's me. That seems like a pretty good return on investment there.
Yeah, I think it helps to actually see the numbers. That's when it really hits home with some of us hard-headed people that are like, well, I do it I can do it. I think a lot of us grossly underestimate the amount of time we spend on things or how much time something is going to take. I think we think of it as, oh, it takes me 30 minutes a month to do this. And in reality, it takes closer to a couple of hours. So having that in front of people so they can actually see, okay, I'm actually spending 30 hours a month on this, and this is what I'm saving by spending that 35 a month, it becomes a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you do it?
And that's the way to start looking at things. And like in the bookkeeping example, I mean, you actually save extra time because at around April of every year, when everyone's scrambling to get their taxes done, if you've kept up with your bookkeeping in a software, the reports that you need to send your accountant or whoever prepares your taxes, they're right there. You can send them at any time because it does it for you automatically. But and if you do a good job at it, all your receipts and everything is already there because you've done it throughout the year. You don't have to have that same dread and that scramble of taxes are due and I don't know how much I made and I don't know this, and my accountant's yelling at me because I need to get them this. Those are the types of I every year without fail. Early April, I get all the panicked emails of, I didn't do my bookkeeping for a year. Can you help me? Mm-hmm. And guess what? It's going to cost more because now you're asking for a rush. So I have to now reprioritize my time. But if we would have gone over some of this stuff maybe, a year ago when I first told you to do it, we wouldn't be in this situation. And that just to put out there, like I'm not a bookkeeper, but it is a service that I offer for a lot of people because people don't like to do it and I don't mind it. It's kind of happy time. It's just calming time for me. I don't know what that is. We have a comment here.
I feel like you are using my system and thought process on subscriptions. I do everything you're telling us not to do.
You're not the only one. The reason I use this as an example is because I have the same conversation with lots and lots and lots of people. It's the most repetitive thing that I hear, and it's the same reasons all the time. And it's completely normal. I think when you're starting a business, or even when you've been running one for a while, these are the patterns we get stuck into. Is I don't want to pay for the next subscription. I don't want to do it. I don't want to spend the money. I want to save my $35 a month.
I know
And
for
then
us. Oh, go on.
Nope, you go.
I know for us, since everything we do is pretty much online, we use Wave apps, again, because it's free and offers what we need for our bookkeeping. But it pulls everything in because we do all of our purchases with credit cards. So I make a purchase, it gets pulled in. All I have to do is assign it to a category. And after a while, it starts to associate, oh, when you buy too much stuff from B&H, this is video or audio equipment. Or you buy stuff from here or there, or it's your cell phone bill. It knows, okay, this is a utility. It starts to classify a lot of that stuff. So I'm spending very little time on the bookkeeping other than making sure everything is communicating correctly and everything's being labeled right and that everything's being pulled in the way it should. So bookkeeping for me is maybe an hour, 2 hours at the most each month, and that's usually if we're doing some sort of Upwork type work where their invoices don't work so well. I have to put everything in manually. I need to figure out a way to automate that, but that's beside the point. But yeah, bookkeeping software can save a ton of money, especially if you're using spreadsheets or keeping all of your records by hand somehow.
And does Wave Apps actually judge you and tell you that you bought too much at B&H?
It might after a while. I haven't gotten there yet, but it's possible. You never know when the machines are going to get that smart and have that
Well,
much autonomy.
I'm sure one of the robots that Tara has built, or that you build the robots. I'm sure you could build yourself a robot that would tell you about that. I don't know. Also, my light died. Just so you know, I went dark. Don't know. My light is revolting. It decided it doesn't want to be there, so I'm gonna sit in the dark for a little while.
Amanda Silhouette.
Yeah, I try to make it a little brighter, but it it decided it doesn't want to do that right now. So there we go.
At least it's sunny and the days are longer, so you're not going to be in darkness when we're done, unless the clouds come in.
That happened in a workshop that I was teaching it was a few weeks ago, but I thought the sun was still staying out longer than it actually is. And I started this workshop at 6:30 and it was still sunny out. And then by the time it was over around 8, I was just this little dark shrunken person. It was kind of funny. Like, yeah, that's why those extra lights are helpful. But okay. So, and then the AI app here, these are just people celebrating their money. I guess that's a happy piggy bank. I'm not quite sure what that was supposed to be, but there you go. These people are happy because they just saved almost $2,000.
Our skeptic is prompting. I love it.
Mm-hmm. We try it. Okay, so that was the option one. That still has that element of DIY. Now we want to factor in what it would cost in theory if you're going to say you're hiring or you're going to pay that $35 a month for QuickBooks Online, but now you're going to hire a bookkeeper who's going to do all the work for you. So really, you're just going to pay them. So you're going to pay for your $35 a month. I just started at, we'll say $300 a month for a bookkeeper. You, depending on how elaborate your books are, it could be more, could be less. We're just using this as an example. So now you're in it for $335. But now you don't have to do the bookkeeping at all because somebody else is doing that. So that full 30 hours a month that you were spending in your convoluted series of spreadsheets is you now have all 30 of those hours to spend on those other things that will bring money in. So in that regard, so you've now saved yourself $3,000 because you're putting that $100 an hour value on your 30 hours of time. And for that, you've spent $335. But so your net there is $2,665 that you've saved. And again, it doesn't mean you're getting a check in return. Nobody's saying, oh, you subscribed for QuickBooks. Here's almost $3,000. Again, would be lovely if that happened. But the idea is that you're taking your time, that 30 hours, and you're going to put that into things that are going to bring in well over that $335 a month. And then you become a happy little penguin in the sun sliding down the snow with a piggy bank on his chest. That is the AI image that is on this slide.
I was going to say, I love his piggy bank t-shirt.
Yeah, he just wants everybody to know I've got my party hat. So I'm celebrating all this money that I have, and I want the piggy bank to show I'm all about money, penguin.
That's what I'd be doing if I saved almost $3,000. I wouldn't be in the snow.
I know you would not.
But I'd be sliding down something happy. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's just understanding the principle of it's spending the money on software or some extra help. It doesn't instantly equate to getting money back, but the principle is there. If you're spending that time in a better way, now you don't even have to do the bookkeeping at all, that thing that you hate. Now somebody else is doing that. They're going to still have questions for you every once in a while. But you have a person now, a whole person that likes doing this, or at least is good at doing it, that can do that for you. And it just, that frees up that time that you can spend on other things.
I look at this example and I think to myself, okay, I spend $35 a month and I get 20 hours back. I can put that into the business, into getting paid work. By paying the $300 a month to hire a bookkeeper, now I get another 10 hours of my time back that I can probably go spend doing fun things that aren't even work related. So, yeah, I'll hire a bookkeeper so I can have more time to go do the things I enjoy doing.
Yeah. What could you do what could you do with an extra 30 hours a month? Like, you think about that, 30 hours. That's almost, I mean, for some people that is a full work week, for some not so much, maybe it's half a week, but 30 hours, that's a decent amount of time, especially when you factor in, people have all kinds of different work hours these days, and I don't particularly believe in the 40-hour work week, so that's not a good example. But a lot of people still, especially who have just recently left the corporate world to start their businesses, who wants to do that? 30 hours a month, it's just full of possibilities, especially for $35. And not to say, budgets are tight, money is tight, the world is getting expensive. I understand all of that. I'm not at any way trying to negate the fact that money is a real factor. I'm about as frugal as it gets. I once used a promo code for a Redbox rental, which I think the cost of a Redbox rental was about $1, and I still used a promo code to get it cheaper than $1. I love a promo code. I love saving money. I like spending money on experiences and things that are going to be a lot of fun. It used to be travel. Now it's not so much, but just I would like to spend money in that way. But I like to save money. My lifestyle is very simple, and I like to keep it that way. So I am the same person that will object to a $35 a month subscription. So I have to remind myself, wait, though, how much time is that $35 an hour or a month subscription costing? And think about it too. In if you're focused on your business and you're trying to get more business because things are slow and whatnot, you might think, okay, so if I need to get groceries, we all need to get groceries because we need to eat. okay, how long is it going to take to get ready, get in the car, drive to the store, get all this stuff, put, do all this stuff, get it out there, check out, get back, put everything away. How much time is that going to take? Versus, okay, so maybe you go to Instacart or whatever grocery store delivery service you like. You're going to have to pay some fees. You're going to tip the driver. I hope you tip the driver. Hopefully they do a good job and they get you the right things and not get you moldy produce. But if you have the good experience, this is why I don't use Instacart. They always bring me moldy produce, and I'm really picky about my produce. But in theory, you could save all that time to have somebody go shopping for you and bring you your groceries. Yes, you'll pay the delivery fee and the tips, and it might cost you more than it would if you would have gone to the store yourself. But how did you use that time that you saved? I thought I turned the sound off on this notification, but you can hear my little Outlook dings for the projects that I'm working on right now. But yeah, there are all sorts of ways where we can look at it at how much it's going to cost us, or we can look at it at how much time is it going to save us. Thoughts on any of that other?
Write a book.
There you go. Write a book.
Okay, maybe not finish it. 30 hours. I can't finish a book in 30 hours. I don't know who can. But you could make some really good headway on a book if you want to write the great American novel. I'm just saying. Or you could go to the Pacific Coast Trail and walk a good, it goes from Canada to Mexico. So down the entire West Coast. You could spend 30 hours on that trail. That would be interesting.
That sounds like a good way to spend some time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so in this example, we're starting with something very simple, $35 a month, bookkeeping. But the same principle can be applied to a $10,000 marketing package. It's a heftier price tag, of course. That's a little harder for some people to swallow. But the right investment will have that ROI, that return on investment. You're going to spend the money up front, but the results are going to pay for themselves. And that's what we're thinking about. It's just that our time is too valuable to waste spinning our wheels all the time. We're trying to spend the money today to prevent that chaos. The chaos, what I get handed, and that's why people come to me, is to fix the chaos. But I'd love it when people come to me at the very beginning, like, hey, this is what we're doing. We started this business. How do we want to set these things up? How do we set ourselves up for success instead of going down the road and then having to backtrack and fix all the little things that happened along the way? All right. What do we have on our...
That goes back to what we were talking about. When you defer stuff, you always pay interest. When you do things right now and build it the right way, you're going to save a ton of time and money down the road because you're not having to go through and spend all of this money on trying to fix things that weren't built properly because we just cobbled it together as we were going. Well, I don't make money, so I'm not going to pay for bookkeeping software, so I'll just keep everything in a spreadsheet. It's the same thing. Then you start adding other things. You start getting more clients. Okay, now I have more things I have to track. I have to track projects. I have to track how much I spend on them. Maybe I'm working with some contractors. I have to start tracking that. So you end up with 18 different spreadsheets all over the place. 5 years down the road, that's how you've been doing everything, but you're realizing this is just taking too much time. I need to hire someone to come in and fix that. Now you're paying somebody probably an hourly rate or a really high project rate to come in and look at everything, put in a more well thought out procedure or process. You're going to have to take the time to learn this new process or procedure, which most people are resistant to change. It's going to take time to make it feel as comfortable as what you've been doing. So there's a lot of cost there in the long term of not doing things right from the beginning.
Yeah, you want to do things right from the beginning. Okay, what do we have on our next slide? I think my slideshow is almost coming to an end. No fun pictures on this one. But so
I like
just
that
think,
one.
it's like, what can you do with that extra 30 hours a month? You can land a new client or project, create a new product or service offering, more ways to make money, batch content for new leads. Batch content, people talk about it all the time. Like, you want to get a bunch of stuff done in advance, because if you're somebody like me who doesn't necessarily like doing content, and just even if it's social media posts and whatnot, to be able to plan out a calendar and get everything made and prepared in advance, so you've got like a whole month's worth and you just have to put it out there, much easier than trying, like, okay, I'm up against a deadline now, I have to scramble and put something together. Being able to do things, prepare and do them in advance, makes a whole big difference. You can clean up your other systems to free up even more time, start buying more of your time back. Properly delegate and train someone else. The training part is huge. I think a lot of times people are like, I need an assistant. The number of times I've had this exact conversation with somebody, I'm so busy, I need an assistant, but I don't have time to train somebody. So I could either train somebody, but then I have to make sure they do things the way that I want to do it, and I don't have time to do that. It's going to be faster if I just do it myself. And that's true. It is easier to do things yourself, or it's faster if you've already used to doing something, you know how to do it. It's going to be faster for you to just do it than to teach somebody else how to do it. But if you are the one that keeps doing it, now you're always going to have to do it. At some point, if you want that help, you have to take the time to teach somebody how to do things. And then once they know how, and especially if you get somebody who's quick and who's proactive and figures things out, they're going to take that information and run with it. And now you can breathe. But you have to factor in that it does take time. It's like when you're working at a job and somebody new comes in, now there's that whole onboarding. It's why turnover costs a company so much, because somebody leaves, now somebody new comes in, you have to train them, and they have to sit through the HR meeting. They've got to do all the different things, get caught up to speed with how that particular company runs. And then if they just turn around and leave because they don't like it, now you have to start over with somebody new. So it for those who employ people, it makes it worthwhile to keep your employees happy so they stay with you, because it's going to cost you more to lose good people because you didn't take care of them. That's a whole other topic, though. Or you can use that time to refocus your energy, because taking breaks is really important, and it's very counterintuitive, because when people are saying, I'm too busy, I don't have time to take a break, but your brain needs time. It needs that reset time. So if you have time, no, you make time. And that could be just moving away from your screens and going to play with your cat for a little while, or it could mean going outside, go walk around the neighborhood for 50 minutes would be great. I was going to say half an hour.
50.
50. Yes,
50. I
Tara.
like 50 minutes.
But just something different. There have been times when when I'm really pressed for time, but I'll just go do laps around the kitchen. I'll go get some tea, and while I'm waiting for it to steep, I'm just kind of doing laps just to get some movement in, just to get my brain thinking about something else. Because sometimes we get too far into something, and we just need a minute to give that a little refresher, and then you come back and you feel better, and you can refocus and get things done faster than trying to just work through it. And I have never forgotten to eat. That's not a thing that has ever happened in my world, but I've worked with a lot of people who forget to eat. I don't understand it. You don't want to. That's the only time in my entire life I think I get grumpy, is when I'm hungry and I need to eat. And that doesn't work. I don't miss meals. It's not a thing I think I've ever done in my life. But when you are so into your work and you forget to eat and you're not taking breaks, like, that burnout is going to happen way faster, and it's not good. Breaks are really, really important, I think. And if you forget to take them, it's a good thing to put them in your schedule. Put an alert in your calendar that just says, hey, Tara, go outside for 50 minutes. Do it now. Because sometimes when we're running our own business, we are our own boss. So we have to trick ourselves into doing things. And alerts in your calendar and actually scheduling time for what's important, even if it sounds silly. I used to have to take out the trash in my calendar because I would forget. When I moved here, it was on a different day, and it just took me a while to remember. So my little alarm would go off every Thursday night, take out the trash. Now I don't have to have it in my phone anymore because I remember to do it. But it's, sometimes we need to remind ourselves to do the things that we don't naturally think about doing. That's also maybe a different topic, but I feel strongly about it. I think breaks are really important.
They are. And I think one of the things to think about is that you used one specific example here, but depending on what type of business you're doing, we should all be able to audit what we're doing, how we work, and find that there's some combination of things or processes where we can save that time. And nowadays, there's so many options for subscription services to help with the business. It can really quickly get out of hand if you're just subscribing to stuff indiscriminately and not really looking at how much time it's saving versus how much you're spending. And that's where the AI and the automation stuff is really going to help, is you can use AI to probably replace some of the subscriptions you're already using, or you can automate things so you're not having to have service X, Y, and Z. Maybe you can get rid of Z and just have services X and Y, because you can find ways to automate or use AI to replace Z. So things are changing quite a bit in how we run business, because 15, 20 years ago, yeah, we were doing a lot of bookkeeping, a lot of stuff by hand. Now, with all of the things available online, there's so many people looking to solve your problems by selling you a subscription. And we've talked about this in previous streams, that a lot of times what they're selling to you is a one-size-fits-all solution. And sometimes it's might not be the best fit for what you need, but it's the best you can find. And that's where we work with companies or businesses to help them find solutions that are more customized to them, that are going to reduce the numbers of subscriptions they need.
My ear itches. It's really annoying when your ear itches inside of headphones. I just wanted to point that out. But it's there.
I feel you. My buds are like hurting the inside of my ears. I keep like give my ear canal a break. Okay.
And sometimes it takes time to find the software that works best for you. I know people are finicky, and with reason. And I know people that have spent a lot of time looking at different software and spending a lot of time, and then they'll do a free trial, and then they hate the interface. And if you hate the way something looks, that might be reason enough you're not going to use it. So sometimes it's important, I think, to take some time to try a few different things, even though it does take even more of that time. But you want to make sure that if you are investing in the right thing, that it pays off. You don't want to, because what I think why people are so hesitant about subscriptions is all the wasted money, because they sign up for one thing and then they kind of try to use it and then they forget about it, but they never cancel the subscription. And then months and months and months go on and they realize, I've been paying for this thing that I'm not using at all. The point here is to pay for things that you're going to use, that are going to streamline the way your business runs and make your life easier. It's not just getting a bunch of apps for the sake of getting apps. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm definitely guilty of that. I'm one of those people that I'll subscribe to something, I'll use it a couple times, then I'll forget about it. Then I'll realize months later, oh crap, I never unsubscribed. They're sneaky, you have to keep on top of them. Or you have to so I do this thing now where I'm so picky about UI or how things work that I sign up for free trials a lot of the time, and what I have to do for myself is put in right when I'm signing up, not 2 hours later, not the next day, but right as I'm signing up, I put in my phone, cancel or decide on subscription now. Like the day before it goes to, charge my card. So that way I don't have these sneaky little subscriptions free trials expiring and having to pay for things that I'm probably not going to use because I'm picky. So take advantage of those free trial offers. Just make sure you put it in your phone or write it down or put a post-it on your head or whatever works for you that says cancel date time or decide on if I'm keeping this. So you know to do that. And when that pops up on your phone or you look at your computer and it's there on your post-it, do it right then. Because then otherwise you'll forget. Trust me, it happens.
I always do that. The second that I sign up for anything, the first thing that I do is I put that reminder in my phone for, if it's a month, then I put it for, a month minus a day. If it's whatever the time is, and I put multiple alerts in there because I just think that's important. Also, when it comes to time, because you said do it now, I also have a 5-minute rule. That is, if something's going to take me 5 minutes or less to do, just do it now. Don't put it on a to-do list. Sometimes I think our to-do lists get just so overwhelming. And when you really kind of dig into them, it's like little things that you can get done really quickly. And then it just feels better to have a lot of things accomplished. But so I just kind of figure like, okay, I need to do this. And then I stop and think, okay, should I put it on the list of things I need to do later, or should I just take 3 minutes right now and get it done? So just another little productivity hack, if you want to call it that. But
I think a lot of people struggle with prioritizing. I know a lot of creatives do. It can be like I talk about like walking into a messy room and not knowing what to do. Things are just everywhere. Like, how do you decide what to put away first, so to speak? So when people have a lot of priorities they're juggling, as the ops master chaos tamer you are, how do you prioritize an overwhelming amount of tasks?
I have always said that time management is my superpower, and I do have different tricks, but and it started with tracking my time. And again, something that takes a little more time to do. I started using Toggle, which is a free timer app. Yeah, again, free because I don't like to pay for things, but there are a lot of different apps out there. But what it means is that I track my time, whether it's billable or not. I want to know where my day is going. Once you have an idea of where your time is going, it makes it there can be a lot of revelations. In the beginning, when I started doing this is probably a year or two into my business, I thought, man, like all my time just disappears, but I'm so busy, but like, what am I doing? And then it's all those little gaps of you stop to look at something on your phone and then you go down the rabbit hole and look at other things, or you get up, or in my case, like I'll get up to go get some water and then the cat is being cute. So I have to spend time with them, and all these little things where you think you're working, and it didn't really turn out that way. And I am a big fan of to-do lists in whatever format works for you. I tend to keep mine on just a running Word doc. I like that because I can easily cut and paste and move things around as I need to. I will separate things by what's going to take the most time and what's important. Obviously, if there's anything that has a deadline, that's going to be top of the list. My paying client work always comes first, because you want to keep your clients happy and make sure that they stay your clients. So by paid work always takes priority in that kind of a flow. But a lot of stuff does live in my head, but the more that I get onto paper, so to speak, even if it's digital, makes a big difference. And sometimes then I'll look at it and like, okay, I have about an hour right now between this time and this time. Like, what can I just knock out really quickly? So sometimes being able to order it by how long it will take. And that's when you get a lot of those little things and just get them done. And it might be, I treat my inbox as a to-do list also. My email organization is a big part of my workflow. Anything that's in my inbox is something that needs to be tended to. So I know that if it's there, it's something that I have to do. Once it's done, it moves into a folder. And then that folder is there in case I ever need to reference something, but it means that it's done. So I can easily look at my inbox and like, okay, need to do this. And especially when I have about 12 different inboxes at any given time, because each client gives me their own email address. So I have different ones that I use for different things. Using tab groups in Chrome. So I have a different tab group for each one of my clients so I can focus. So if I'm working on the British or the Great American Baking Show, then I've got that tab group open. All my sheets are there. If I'm moving on, I'm done with that for the day, I'm going to minimize that and bring up one of my other clients. It helps because I think a lot of people bounce around from thing to thing, and you spend a lot of time like, oh, wait, which site was on? And sometimes people just have tabs everywhere. And as much as I don't like physical clutter, I can't stand digital clutter either. File naming becomes very important because if you ever go to look for something, you want to know how to find it easily. And if you've got a bunch of image 1653.jpg files, the, naming things becomes useful. But really, I think it just is a matter of taking that time first thing in the morning to say, okay, here's my game plan for the day, knowing fully well that it's going to change because things are going to come up and you'll have to reprioritize. But having a plan, at least in the morning. And then when I'm finishing for the day, I'll kind of look over what is coming up for tomorrow and get that kind of planning in my head so that I am not just wasting a bunch of time trying to figure out, okay, I've got time now. Like, what should I do? I always want to know, okay, I need to do this. I need to do this. And so those are some examples. Apparently I can talk a lot about a lot of that stuff.
One of the things I've been struggling with lately was trying to learn something new. I need larger chunks of uninterrupted time. And between getting up and making breakfast, working out, showering, making lunch, and then making dinner, my morning was really broken up into 2 or 3 different sections. That wasn't helping me. So I really looked at how I was doing things and changed things so that I'm more or less doing things like I did at a traditional job where I get up and I shower right away. That way, I'm not showering after I eat breakfast, which is breaking up my day even more. So now I get a couple of hours after I wake up to get stuff done. Showering helps wake me up, so I'm more ready to go when I do start working as soon as I'm out of the shower. Then I eat breakfast, and then I'll have a little bit of time before we do our workouts, and then we have lunch. And then I've got all afternoon. So just making that one little change probably got me a good couple hours of solid work time uninterrupted work time that I wasn't able to have before because it was so splintered up. So, yeah, looking at how you're spending your time, looking at how you can better organize your time or schedule it. I'm also one of those people that likes to schedule out tasks throughout the day. It helps me know what I should be doing. But I know that doesn't work for everybody. But yeah, my advice to a lot of people is to start by just time tracking where all of your time goes, what you do. How much time do you spend on social media? How much time do you spend on this type of project and that type of project? How much time do you spend when you get up to take a break? Are you getting distracted by cats and losing 45 minutes at a time? It's good to know where all of the time is going so you can know where you can start to be more aware of that.
And I think that's how I schedule my day too. It's figuring out where those blocks of time are. And I think a couple other things is knowing when it's paying attention to your energy levels throughout the day. Some of us are morning people. We get started first thing in the morning, and that's for me. I'm at my best first thing in the morning. I just always feel like I can get the most done at that time. Then by the end of the work day, what I would consider maybe by like 5, 6 o'clock, my brain's done. It doesn't want to do anything else. But then you have people like Tara. Well, Tara's not a morning person. She's not going to be up at 6 a.m. getting work done, but she's a night owl. She can probably do her best writing at after like 1, 2
Midnight.
in the morning. Yep. And so for her, waking up early is not going to help with that workflow. Some people have different pockets of time throughout the day. It might be, after lunch, they either get a burst of energy or maybe they'll have a little bit of a lull because they just ate maybe a big meal for lunch. being able to know when you're at your most energetic and then use that time to do the most brain intense tasks is really helpful. And also the idea of knowing which parts of your brain you're going to have to use for different things. Because I think that, like if you're trying to bounce around, like, okay, I'm going to do bookkeeping, but I've got to do this creative thing. And you're just kind of going back and forth. You're doing all that little brain ping pong that maybe that's what I talked about last time when I brought up blah ball, but it's the same idea. Like you want to focus on the more left-brained activities in one batch of time, and then maybe the right-brained activities some other time. It just helps with that whole workflow in general.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That's what early morning is for me, is doing all the admin stuff, the left brain stuff, so I can have my afternoons for my creativity. When my brain's actually on. Because it's after working out, after eating, and finally turns my brain on so I can create.
I do want to mention, just in this topic, a real example from my, oh, hi cat, is that Ziggy still?
That would be Ziggy.
Hi.
So sad. So sad.
Why aren't you spending time with me? But kind of what prompted, well, one of the many things, we talk about this topic a lot, the value of time. I think it's something that gets overlooked quite a bit. But recently, one of the clients that I've been working with him I've been working with him in various things since 2016, but this particular company that he's running, when I started working with him initially, we had this conversation in 2019. I was still in Vegas at the time. I went into the office when I still went to places in person, did a whole overview of what the company was doing. It was a lot of manual spreadsheets, lots of copying and pasting, all of that kind of thing. Put together a plan. I think this is where to start. This is how we can move things forward, and we can save a lot of your time, free up this much time for your office manager that then she could spend doing other things. It was all about this. They weren't ready yet. It took 5 years for us to actually implement this stuff, and it was for all the reasons that we've talked about in this live stream. They wasn't ready to spend the time to retrain people. They didn't want to incur the costs. They were on a system and they were getting by, and getting by sometimes for people feels like, well, that's enough. I'm getting by. Things are fine. Things are fine. They're in denial a little bit. And what happened then, of course, the company gets busier and busier, and then things are falling through the cracks. And in the past year, by implementing a new system that streamlines everything, and it's so much fun for me, especially when I get the calls. I'm like, or we'll be on a call, and I'm like, so how, if I want to pull this report that he used to spend an entire day going through statements and different things in Excel and making manual things to figure out. Well, this report, it already exists in your software. We're going to take less than 1 minute now. I'm going to click here. We're going to click here. We're going to click here. Here's your information. And just the mind blown that that's all I have to do. But I had a whole day put aside for this. You don't need it anymore. And it's that kind of thing. In the case of doing all of this, I through using that old system, found over $100,000 in billing errors that have now been remedied, because it was just the thing. People get so busy and they do things fast and they use one template and they forget to update a formula, or all these things that are happening, and nobody's paying attention because there are too many people doing the same things. And that has been a huge thing. So there's a monetary value to that. But also, when I talked to him a couple weeks ago, and I just had asked, how much time have you saved since we put these new systems in place? And he said at least 40 hours a month. That's 40 hours a month that he has back in his life to do a lot of different things, focus on other areas of the company that he's working on improving. It's freeing up other employees' time that they're spending now on other things that are bringing in more money. He's able to be there for family more, which has been really important. And there are all of these things, which is and that's just one element of that company. There are other things that we're moving on to. And this is where I get really excited about working with people, because it's once they make that investment, and yeah, it's really frustrating for a long, and it takes a lot of time. But once things are running, once everything's implemented and moved over and people know how to do it, like I actually see the light bulb moments, or I hear them. And that's what's really fun to me. It's oh, why didn't I do this 5 years ago? Sometimes you're not ready, and that's okay. You only you know what's right for you. But if you're constantly having these objections that I can't afford it, it's going to take too much time, it's just going to make things worse. We're too busy to make things better. Just think about how much better things could be if you took the time to to save that time in the long run. So just a different way of thinking about your business and how it runs. And yeah, that price tag could be scary. But what if? Because nobody can really guarantee any kind of ROI. You might put a lot of money into something and not see the instant results that you're hoping for. That's always a risk that you take. But if you don't do anything, you don't do anything. And you're going to you can't get out of the problems you have by not doing anything different. That's the kind of way it works. If things aren't working, you have to change them to make them work.
I agree.
Do I have any other slides?
Truth.
Yeah. I don't remember if there was another one or not. I'd love for anybody to know what yeah. That's my closing remarks. So we've still got some time. Some other points to kind of think about, like, where are you going to invest your money so you can buy your time? I always feel that it's best to focus your time on those high value tasks that only you can do. You want to reduce your stress. You want to increase your profits. You want to do all of those things. You think about everything working together. So systems are good. Support from other humans, whether they're your employees or not. Maybe it's that bookkeeper that you finally decided to hire to take one thing off your plate. But you put those things together, that's how your business grows. It's not going to, and it could grow. You could just keep doing things the way you're doing and you're getting by, but things could always be better. And so it's just a matter of reprioritizing and thinking, okay, well, what can and start with baby steps. Think about the things that are taking the most time out of your day, or somebody on your team that you need to do with something else. Start there. What's taking up, because it's just like the to-do list, or that a lot of times people don't really know everything that has to get done. It's just all in their heads. So start putting things on paper. It sounds boring. Make a to-do list, but just get it all out there, because once you see it visually, it's like the numbers in this presentation. It's easy to keep everything in our heads, and it's all a jumbled mess up in there, but get it out of your head, and then you can see it, even if it's just a list, a boring Times New Roman fonted list on a Word doc, just all the things that need to be done. And then you can kind of start moving things around. Okay, let me focus. These things are going to, these are things that are going to take short amounts of time. These I'm going to need to dedicate more time to. This is going to use left brain. This is going to use right brain. Move things around. And then, if you can, assign an estimated time to each one of those, and add that up, figure out what it's really going to take. Yes, it's going to take time to make this list and to figure it out. But then you've got that action plan where you can just say, okay, I know exactly when I sit down at my desk today, I know all the things that need to be done. And I know my priorities, so I'm going to just make my way through that list. Oh, this email came in, urgent thing for a client. I've got to now shift. That's okay. You at least know that you can then come back to it. And at the end of the day, you can take that list and, to me, one of it's so dumb, but one of the, feels so good to cross something off of a to-do list, or to delete it from whatever you're using to track it. It means you accomplished something. I used to use the Post-it note that in my corporate job, that I was the Post-it note queen. Everything on a Post-it note was something that needed to be done. Once I got to put that Post-it note in the recycling, and then it was done. So the fewer Post-it notes, the better things were in my life. So,
That's
but we
what I
all have
loved
our.
about. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was done.
That's what I love about using Asana is you can just click the little check and it gives you a little like flying unicorn or some kind of flying creature. It's very satisfying. I'm a project management person. If I try to do a document of any kind, it would probably be a chaotic disaster. So project management keeps me organized.
One thing that I think I heard Christo say on something we were watching is that a lot of people mistake success for knowing what you're doing. And I do see that with quite a bit of businesses, especially smaller businesses. They think that because they're doing well, they have it all figured out. And usually something somewhere along the lines comes up and reminds them that, okay, maybe I've had a little bit of luck. Maybe I don't know everything that I need to know to run a fully successful and functional business. And that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. Like we talked about early on, you might have a ton of business coming in, but at some point, those referrals might drop off or the economy changes and your clients don't have the budgets anymore, or you work in the creative space and AI is replacing most of what you do. So you have to go back to the drawing board and figure things out. So that's where a lot of this stuff really comes down to, is just because you're being successful doesn't mean you have it all figured out. And building a good solid foundation is what's going to help you really weather these types of storms. Having a good solid foundation for how you do everything, your processes and your procedures, for how you approach your marketing, and have that as a constant in your week to week business. That's going to help you in the long run versus I get all of my work from word of mouth. At some point, you're going to need work, and that referral that you've relied on being there at the right time at the right place just isn't there. And you start to realize, okay, now I need to figure something else out because what's worked for me up until now isn't working anymore.
So, any questions? Does anybody have any questions you want to throw out at us? Could be ops related, could be branding or marketing, could be AI, integration, automation.
I think that it's a simple place that a lot of people are starting right now is, okay, maybe they want an assistant and they feel like they can't afford an assistant. They're not sure, because work fluctuates so much, they might be able to pay somebody now, but they're worried that they would then they'd find somebody good and then have to let them go right away because of different reasons. But a lot of the stuff that Jesse does, this automation, there are ways with, you're not using an actual person, and we're not trying to take jobs away from people by any means. We're just finding ways to utilize these tools to make our own workflows more efficient. And those are things that I'm still working on, because I'm very old school with my processes, and I use a lot of spreadsheets for different things, and I use Word docs, and I don't have a lot of fancy software because I don't like to pay for things. So but there are, it's learning how to do all of it. Can you use AI to help you in the things that you need to do? Can you also reallocate your time, so maybe you can hire another person on your team that can help out with a lot of the things? It all depends on what your goals are, but there are just so many ways to do it. And I think everyone focuses so much on dollar signs. What's it going to cost? What's the cost? What's the cost? But it can cost you your time. And then our time is just so important. I know I keep saying it, but I think it's the part that people overlook. Everybody knows that they're strapped for time. Everybody knows that they're busy and overworked. But are you doing anything about it is the thing. And maybe you are. And it's hard. Running a business is hard. Trying to find money try paying clients to do, who want to pay you for what you do. It takes effort, and things are good sometimes, they're not great sometimes, but we like to look at things with as much optimism as possible, and think that we'll find the right solutions that'll get you to where you want to be.
Well, and it seems like a lot of people want to focus on the fun stuff, which is usually the service that they offer. Nobody wants to look at the boring things, the things they don't enjoy doing, the boring stuff. And that's where AI can really help out quite a bit. And we do have a comment here.
Oh, Jesse went mute.
Oh no.
Something when I change scenes mutes me sometimes but Mike said, I'm interested to see how much of what I do can be automated. And I think for anybody, there's a pretty good amount of stuff that can be automated. And we'd basically start with the low-hanging fruit, the stuff that can easily be done with really simple things. And that can be managing emails, moving important emails to a folder or whatever you want to do. Looking at how you interact with people. Do you have a form on your website for people to reach out to you? You can have responses that go out to them right away. There's a lot of pretty easy things that can be automated. So, yeah, we'll be interested to see how much of it can be automated too, because I'm sure there's something in there that can be done to save some time. Like from our personal thing. Right now I'm working on an automation that will take one of our live streams, take the transcript, break it up into sections so it can look at it and go, okay, with what we talked about today, we can create 2 blog posts, 5 social media posts, and something for the newsletter. And it'll go through its thing, outlining the blog article, writing it, sending it to the editor to revise it until we get something that's really good to have the human overlook it, or not overlook it, look over it to make sure everything's good, make any last minute changes before it goes up. So for me, trying to write a single article is going to take me probably a full week because I'm not a writer. I don't know what makes for good writing. That's just not my area. Tara is good at it. But even for her, it's going to take her a good amount of time. So being able to put the robots to use to repurpose what we just set aside 2 hours to do into various types of content that we don't have to put much time into other than reviewing it and doing some hopefully minimal edits to it. That's going to save us a lot of time. That's going to help us with the marketing. So that's one way that we're using the robots to help us personally.
Jesse bot.
And Mike, you sound like me. The number of conversations I've had with Jesse about, well, nothing I do can be automated. And then he asks questions and figures things out, because in my mind, I just can't wrap my head around it. I know it exists, but I feel like everything I do is so different that I'm not doing repeat processes over and over. And he's helping me figure out, well, no, you do. You're just not thinking about them that way. So that's why we have an expert like that. And also, just a point, because I was talking to somebody the other day about this and the way that they're running their business. And you had mentioned like the automated email responses. And I think, there's ways to use those that are different than just the thanks we received your form instant message things that people get. But this one company, the way they get a lot of business is by being the first to respond. And you think about it, if you're hiring a plumber and you don't have a recommendation, so you're going to ask a few people for a quote. And then for whatever reason, 3 of them don't even get back to you because people don't want to take your money. Same thing with the landscapers. A lot of service people, it seems you can reach out to a bunch of people and they just never get back to you. And you're like, okay, I want to give you money. Let me give you money, please. But they just, for whatever reason, you never hear from them. So sometimes then you just go by who gets back to you the fastest, and maybe you compare a couple different numbers, and that's how you decide which direction to go. But there are a lot of people who just don't respond in any kind of a timely manner. So I know for me, if I reach out to somebody, if I get that automated, oh, we got your message, that doesn't mean anything. But if it comes back and said, we received your message and you'll hear back from us within 1 business day. Okay, then I can calm down. Or I'll wait a day for some information, but at least then that sets up my expectation versus not hearing anything. Or then suddenly, a week later, somebody gets back to you. It's like, man, I've already moved on. That project's already finished. That's thinking about how you're interacting, not just with your existing clients, but potential clients. And that, I think those are things where you can set it up. So if a form comes through your website, there is some kind of a response that at least lets them know, like, they can expect to hear back from you within a certain time frame. I think a lot of us were so traumatized by all the ghosting that happens that we just don't expect to hear back from anybody anymore, and we just kind of move on with somebody who responds.
Yeah, and something you can do with that email is look at what useful information can I provide to them right away. For us, that might be a slide deck that goes into who we are, what type of work we do, and an idea of what our prices are. So, Mike, for someone like you might be able to send them a little catalog of work that you've done or custom work that you've done. You could have a price list of this is how much a custom piece starts at. So they have a little more information before you have an opportunity to even get back to them. So it's like Amanda said, looking at how can we use that auto response to them beyond just saying, hey, we got it, we'll be in touch maybe sometime, by providing value to them. Those are the types of things we look at.
Any other comments, questions, thoughts? Bueller. Another 80s reference, because that's where everything lives in my head.
Not that you grew up in the 80s and 90s or anything.
No, don't know what you're talking about. I was not around in the 1900s. I'm young.
She's not a millennial. No.
It depends on which survey you look at. I identify much better with Gen X, and I'm right on the cusp. Sometimes they put me in the millennial category, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. But sometimes they put me in Gen X, and I feel like that's more my speed.
Collins looks orange.
Collins looks
Joked
orange.
behind you, and he looked orange.
Because that's Grace. That's because that's Grace.
Oh, that's Grace looks orange. Yeah.
Yeah. This is not in the platform, but I got a comment on the side that somebody wishes she could automate peeling and chopping vegetables. I would also appreciate it if there was a robot that could do those things for us. So,
personal chef that can cook us healthy meals every day. That would be so wonderful.
Yeah. So when Jesse figures out how to build those robots, we will test them out, and we'll all be happy. I would like a robot to tell me what to eat for dinner every day, just to plan out my grocery list for me and just tell me what to eat. I'm sure that could happen. Yeah.
Jesse built one for us.
We can do that.
See? There you go. Things that take too much time, you just, find ways to streamline.
We won't be building robots that cook meals or chop vegetables, but we can do things to help you think and do things along those lines.
I'm just moving my head out of the way to make room for Grace. She never makes appearances, but she's blurry back there. But yeah, if we don't have any other comments.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us in our Brandon Business Remix live stream. if you watch this later in a replay and you come up with some comments or questions or whatever, just say hello, like, hey, we're here. Again, we want to make sure we're not talking in that John Oliver void from back in the day. So, let us know if we can help you buy back your time. You can reach us at bbremix.com. You know where to find us. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. We're still building the various brands, but if you go to BB Remix, you've got our landing page that has some more information. And join us here next week. Same time, same bad time, same bad channel. I think that's like a much older than 80s reference. That's decades before, right? I forget when that original Batman show was, but yeah. So I have, but all my references are old. I need to learn more Gen Z speak. Maybe some young person can watch these and help us. 60s. All right. Mike said that's a 60s reference. So yeah.
That's fire, Amanda. That's fire.
Oh no. Fire. But see, I hear fire, all I think is like fire, which is 90s.
Mike, we do look forward to working with you as well.
You do.
And I think before we get into any other references, we'll go ahead and call this a wrap. So we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.